In the early years of the 20th century, Europe stood on the edge of the greatest conflict in human history. The governments of the continent believed they could control events. They believed diplomacy, military planning, and alliances would. World War I did not begin with one gunshot alone. They did not. You are about to explore how hidden choices, private conversations, and confidential Europe before 1914 held a balance that looked stable from the outside. The major powers watched each other with caution. Germany, Austria Hungary, Russia, France, and Britain built large armies. They expanded their navies. They made alliances. They believed these alliances would prevent conflict. The truth was more complex. Germany feared conflict on two fronts. France waited for any chance to recover lost territory. Russia wanted influence in the Balkans. Austria Hungary feared the rise of national movements within its borders. Each nation believed these plans required decisions that officials kept confidential. They assumed secrecy protected their interests. In reality, secrecy increased risk. The Schlieffen Plan is one example. German military leaders created it, almost in isolation. They designed a rapid attack on France in case a wider conflict began. They expected to defeat France before Russia could mobilize. Few civilian leaders understood the full details. They did not grasp how rigid the plan was. Once Germany began mobilizing, the plan forced action. This created pressure where diplomacy should have created space. Britain also made quiet choices. Political leaders discussed the possibility of defending France, even though no written treaty required it. These talks remained limited to small groups. Most of Parliament did not know the true expectations placed on the British military. This lack of clarity influenced the events of the summer of 1914. Tension in the Balkans increased during the early 20th century. Serbia wanted independence for Slavic groups under Austro-Hungarian rule. Russia supported Serbia. Austria Hungary feared losing control. Several small crises unfolded before 1914. Each one ended without a major war. These outcomes convinced leaders that they understood how to manage conflict. They did not see how fragile the situation had become. By 1914, Austria Hungary struggled with internal divisions. Military leaders pushed for stronger action against Serbia. They believed Serbia. Foreign Minister Leopold Berchtold began confidential discussions with Germany. These talks shaped what would become one of the most important secret decisions of the period. Germany promised full support if Austria-Hungary moved against Serbia. This support became known as the blank check. It is one of the decisions that scholars continue to debate. The blank check emboldened Austria-Hungary. Leaders prepared a harsh ultimatum for Serbia. They expected Serbia to reject it. They wanted a clear reason for military action. They did not consider how Russia would respond. They ignored warnings from diplomats who urged caution. The ultimatum became a turning point. It moved the conflict from local tension to continental crisis. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand visited Sarajevo. A group of young nationalists prepared to attack his convoy. The assassination that followed shocked Europe. Many leaders expected a strong response from Austria-Hungary. Few believed it would lead to global conflict. Behind closed doors, however, decisions began quickly. Austrian officials saw an opportunity to weaken Serbia. They knew their empire struggled with internal pressure. They believed a strong military victory would restore control. They worked with German advisors to craft the ultimatum. They viewed it as unavoidable. They saw the moment as favorable. Russia was still building its industry. France faced political divisions. British decision-making looked uncertain. German leaders believed early action gave them the best chance for victory. They pushed for swift mobilization once the crisis unfolded. Russia made its own hidden decisions. Tsar Nicholas II did not want war. His advisors, however, feared that failure to support Serbia would weaken Russia's influence in the region. Some Russian officials began quiet preparations for mobilization before the final negotiations ended. They believed secrecy could prevent escalation. It did the opposite. In July 1914, diplomats worked to stop the crisis. They exchanged messages. They sent warnings. They proposed conferences to resolve disputes. Yet many officials did not know the full plans of their own governments. This limited the ability of diplomats to make meaningful offers. Britain tried to mediate. Foreign Secretary Edward Grey asked European governments to attend a conference. Germany rejected the idea. They believed conferences favored British interests. Austria Hungary avoided direct talks until the ultimatum reached Serbia. This delay reduced options for compromise. Germany insisted, did not want war. At the same time, its military leaders pushed for rapid mobilization. Civilian leaders did not fully understand the consequences of these steps. They believed mobilization could pressure other nations to slow their actions. Instead, it increased fear in Russia and France. Russia misunderstood German intentions. Russian leaders believed Germany already planned an invasion. They ordered partial mobilization. They soon realized partial mobilization was impossible with their system. They shifted to full mobilization. This move convinced Germany that war had become unavoidable. France also made private commitments. French leaders told Russia that they would support them if Germany attacked. These discussions did not become public. They created a sense of obligation that influenced all later decisions. Between July 28th and August 4th, the situation moved rapidly. Austria Hungary declared war on Serbia. Russia began full mobilization. Germany responded with its own mobilization. France prepared its forces. Britain waited while it evaluated its commitments. During these days, leaders made choices they believed would protect national power. Many of these choices relied on plans created years earlier. They did not have time to question old assumptions. They did not consider new options. They followed rigid frameworks because their systems demanded it. Germany activated the Schlieffen Plan. This required an invasion of Belgium. Britain had long-standing agreements to protect Belgian neutrality. German leaders understood the risk. They continued anyway. They believed the plan offered the only chance for victory. This decision brought Britain into the war. Austria Hungary moved slowly against Serbia. Their armies were unprepared. Their leaders expected a short conflict. They did not expect Russia to intervene so quickly. Their decision to punish Serbia changed the future of their entire empire. Russia believed that mobilization could force Germany to negotiate. This assumption did not hold. German leaders interpreted Russian mobilization as a direct threat. France believed support for Russia was necessary to maintain its place in Europe. Private commitments became public consequences. World War I did not erupt because of one cause. It began because powerful nations made choices without full transparency. Leaders acted on fear, ambition, and assumptions shaped by years of planning. They believed secrecy protected national interests. They believed rapid action prevented weakness. They underestimated how each decision influenced every other decision in Europe. Germany hid the full details of its warplanes from many civilian officials. Austria-Hungary concealed its long-term goals in the Balkans. Russia hid the pace of its mobilization. France concealed the depth of its support for Russia. Britain kept many of its military expectations out of public debate. The lack of open communication increased mistrust. Nations interpreted each move as a threat. Cooperation became harder. Each government believed others held advantages. Secret planning replaced open dialogue. The result became one of the most destructive wars in history. By August 1914, the world had changed. Millions would soon face conflict across continents. Armies marched because years of secret decisions left no room for retreat. Leaders who believed they could manage crisis discovered how little control they truly had. The outbreak of World War I reminds us that decisions made in private can shape the fate of entire nations. Plans that seem secure can collapse when events move faster than expected. The story of these hidden choices continues to teach important lessons about diplomacy, transparency, and the dangers of rigid thinking. The events of 1914 were not inevitable. They were the result of human choices, made at a moment when leaders believed secrecy served their interests. The world that followed proved how costly those choices became.